So what we hear from employers and from higher ed are that students need to have some applied skills, the ability to collaborate, communicate, to express themselves, the kinds of habits of success and time management and responsibility that Andrea talked about. And it leads to the question that Maura just referred to of, is it the same to prepare for college and for career? And from my perspective and MBAE's perspective, we think that that debate has been asked and answered, and our energies should go elsewhere, because we have been accepting the definition that Achieve, a national organization of employers and of CEOs and governors, have given, and I'm just going to read it to be accurate. The knowledge and skills that high school graduates need to be successful in college are the same that they need to be successful in a job that pays a family-sustaining wage, provides benefits, and offers clear pathways for career advancement through further education and training. And this is very consistent with what ACT, which administers a college entrance exam, has also found, that whether planning to enter college or workforce training programs after graduation, high school students need to be educated to a comparable level of readiness in reading and mathematics. Graduates need this level of readiness if they're to succeed in college-level courses without remediation and to enter workforce training programs ready to learn job-specific skills. So if we proceed with our discussion with the agreement that many of the same levels of knowledge and skills are needed regardless of which path students take after high school, we still need to know how effectively we're doing and what the current situation is, so people understand we have a problem, but we're dealing with it. And Maura, starting with you again, how we are implementing some new standards in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Common Core Standards, and this is part of a regular updating of standards that has occurred since 1993, when the first curriculum frameworks were enacted through the Education Reform Act. So how effectively will these new standards and assessments address the applied skills needs of students to be career ready after college or after high school? And is the success that we see in the vocational technical education field informing this work at all?
Wow. You just hit a place I love to talk about, so trust me, I am your K-12 board chair. Trust me, the Massachusetts new standards are terrific, and they were vetted by 4 different independent studies to make sure that we were actually improving what we had in 2009. The standards are all about content and the application of content. So they're getting at this, what we're trying to do when we're making people ready to apply knowledge, just not to acquire knowledge. That's so important in the workplace, as you know. So students are now able to study math and understand how it gets applied, because that's what's happening in the classroom. They're learning English language arts and learning why that's important in the world of work. So the standards are a huge shift. I like to think of it as like Ed Reform 2, 1993 again. So I'm very excited about the standards. They were a multi-state-led effort. They were based on what was best in the most advanced nations in the world. And I think it's our obligation to not keep this state first in the nation, but first in the world. So when you bring in the topic of assessments, and let me just, one more comment about standards. You can tell I love them. What they're essentially doing is they're making sure that students in Alabama have the same education as students in Massachusetts. This country, as great as it is, had a different set of standards for all 50 states. That's okay if students never move. That's okay if employees never move. But at IBM, we move people around the country a lot, and we like to know that an education in Mississippi looks like an education in New York. So it gives students portability, and it gives employees portability. More importantly, it gives the country an opportunity to share what we learn, so not everyone is creating their own curricula. So map that then to the new assessment systems, and Massachusetts is leading the PARCC Consortia. You don't want to know what I know about this, but I'll share the highlights, which are essentially to say that If you know much about what we do as a state, we have a very rigorous assessment system called MCAS. It's still really only an 8th grade standard administered in the 10th grade. What PARC is going to do is take that to the next level, and it's going to say, how do we assess some of those new skills? Some people call them the soft skills. I call them the essential skills. If you don't have teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, and other things that we've already talked about, you're not going to succeed in work or in higher ed. So the new assessment system is very focused on assessing those. Again, in a multi-state format. So guess what you do? You save a whole lot of money. Testing companies aren't going to be happy, but we're going to invest that money in education and not in tests. Your other question was about VocaTech. Mm-hmm. VocaTech is now the darling, right? And for years it was for those are for kids who really like to apply skills, but they're not the academic lightning rods. Well, VocaTech became the darling, quite frankly, because about 10 years ago, a committee that then Governor Romney had in place forced VocaTech to pay close attention to academic rigor. It was not okay to train people in skills and to send them out there because guess what? Plumbing jobs might dry up. Guess what? Some other industries might leave the state. So VocaTech heard the message, got with the program, really focused on the academics as well as applied knowledge, and they are, in many cases, leading the state in terms of performance. So they're now the model that we're looking at as we say, how do we do the both and? Not just subject matter knowledge, but subject matter knowledge with the ability to apply it.
So, Andrea, I know that you personally have been involved in the development of new assessments, but what else, how is higher ed working to align with K-12, and what are you doing in terms of measuring college readiness?
Maura mentioned the PARC, the Partnership for the Assessment of the Readiness for College and Career Consortium, and Massachusetts' leadership role in that. And Massachusetts has a leadership role not only on the K-12 side, but on the higher ed side. Commissioner Chester is chair of the PARC Governing Board. Commissioner Freeland at Higher Ed is chair of the Advisory Committee on College and Career Readiness, and are working together to present a unified voice for Massachusetts in this national consortium. One of the key opportunities that this whole movement and transition to a new set of standards and to a new set of assessments is the opportunity for higher ed to collaborate very closely at every single level in the development of the transition plans and in the development of the assessment itself. That remediation problem is very costly. Students waste time and money, and it's costly to administer those remedial courses. And so higher ed has a vested interest in making sure our students are ready for those first year credit-bearing courses so that they don't have to waste that time and that money. And so Massachusetts and the two boards have worked together to develop a collaborative structure at the local, regional, and state level to define what college readiness should mean, to work on the development of career readiness, to fold that in to the development of college readiness through a structure that includes campus engagement teams, K-12 and higher ed, regional readiness centers that bring together K-12, higher ed, and early education and care, and then a statewide coordinating structure that will ultimately take the perspectives that have been developed at the local and regional level and share them with the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Board of Higher Education, and then present Massachusetts' view on this issue to the national discussion. And this will happen not only with the development of the definition of college readiness, but also in other key matters in the development of validity studies, for example, or the development of a college-ready benchmark or cut score. We have a very prominent role. And it's really important to higher education because we also are producing graduates who are being assessed by you, the employers. And so not only do we need to produce graduates who can be at the top in terms of how they perform, but also we need to graduate more students. So again, fundamental to those goals is being ready for those credit-bearing courses and being ready to go through successfully in a shorter amount of time.